Hey guys, Mike here from MikeAndBobFilms, and today I'll be bringing you my special attack guide, as promised. Now these will be the main PVM and PKing weapons, not all of the special weapons, but the main ones that you should use or that you could use. And I'll be doing a DPS calculations and showing some clips of what it can do and the attack stats and whatnot, just to kind of give you an idea, and I'll rate them as I go. So enjoy the video. Alright, so we're going to start off with the Armadillo Godsword, or the AGS for you pros out there. It is by far the most desired spec weapon in the game. It's an all-around weapon. It will attack monsters and bosses really, really well because of the high attack bonuses, which you can see on the screen. I'm not going to talk about the stats. You know that. And for PKing, it's a really awesome weapon because it's a 50% spec bar weapon. It only drains 50% per spec. Let's see, it requires level 75 attack to equip, and the DPS calculations, or the damage per second calculations I'm doing, are with these requirements: 99 strength, aggressive attack style, extreme strength potion, turmoil, void melee set, fury, deboots, fire cape, and Berserker Ring. Now this is like the best of the best of the best. Is about as best as you can get with this for PVMing or PKing. If you wanted to use bandos or other strength items, it doesn't change the damage per second at all, basically. It's 888 damage per spec, or 886 if you do like maxed other items. Let's see. The total damage per spec bar, which is how I'm rating these, is 1,776 for total damage for using up your whole spec bar. Now that's at a the AGS attacks at 3.6 seconds on an interval in between each attack, so that comes down to 247 DPS, which is insane. All right, so anyways, now you guys can see some shots of it being used. Anyways, with my stats and gear that you see there, that's about, I have a max of like 600 something damage, so it's not bad for about an average player. Now we're on to Dragon Claws, also one of the most desired special weapons in the game. I would say overrated personally. They're actually one of the few weapons that dragon weapons that you don't need a quest for. It requires level 60 attack to wield, 50% spec bar usage, and with the stats and the equipment I gave earlier, which will also be in the description if you guys want to look at that, 842 damage per spec. That's 1,684 spec bar damage. So that's actually pretty low for spec bar damage. But where it comes into play, the big part, is if you have a high enough attack level, these things can be beast, because you do 4 fast attacks. So it's 4 chances to hit. And if you have a high enough attack level, and if you're fighting something with medium to low defense, like a Dagger, then these things are absolutely amazing. 2.4 seconds per special attack, and that comes down to 350 DPS, which is ridiculous. 350 DPS? That's insane for just a dragon item. Dragon items don't usually pull it off that well. So, anyways, like I said earlier, you really, really need to pay attention to your attack level. I wouldn't recommend using it if you're lower level. I know a lot of people like to use D-Claws for one iteming. I would actually say if you want a one item, do an AGS. Use Dragon Claws if you're professional RuneScapian, like I said, for high attack people or people that have potted up to a decent attack level, because there is a high chance that you could hit all zeros, or 2 damage and 5 damage with 2 splashes. Dragon Claws are very emotional, very touchy weapon, so be very careful with these. Good luck. On to the Dragon Mace. Now the Dragon Mace is a lot like the Dragon Dagger in that it's a 25% spec bar and it's a dragon weapon. And that's it. Dragon Mace is a piece of shit. No. Okay, after that, let's move on to the Dragon Dagger, or DDS. The Dragon Dagger Super Poison, more importantly. There's almost no appreciable difference between the normal Dragon Dagger and the Dragon Dagger Super Poisoned. The poison will attack at random times, at it begins at a random interval once you deal damage. So it happens sometimes where you'll spec out somebody and you'll actually get that poison damage in the spec. So you'll deal 3 attacks at once, which is rather cool. Now, the difference about this particular weapon is that it's a 25% spec weapon. Now, that is difficult to analyze, because usually what happens is you spec twice with a normal like claws or AGS, then you switch to your main attack weapon, and you can continue attacking that way. Now with the DDS, they call it Rambo specs, or everybody says go DDS go, because it can deal so much damage for an entire spec bar that's used. Now the idea is that you continue speccing and you can deal massive amounts of damage, but you have to have the attack level to be able to do that damage. Now level 60 attack, Lost City quest, 25% spec bar, as I said. Now it deals 894 possible damage per special, which is ridiculous. That's like AGS high. That's stupid good. But it has low attack, so you're not likely to hit it that high, but you could. Now where the DDS comes into play is 3,576 damage for total spec bar usage. You can't eat that fast. It's impossible to eat that fast if you continue speccing. Now, you got to get lucky, and you got to be able to hit through that armor if you're PKing, or through the defense level if you're boss hunting. 2.4 seconds per attack, and 372 DPS. Now, the DPS is ridiculous, because it moves twice as fast as an AGS, and deals just about as much damage, if you're lucky. Now, AGS will hit hard often, DDS will not, so you have to get lucky, and you have to take that into account. And now on to the Korasi sword. Now this weapon is one of the weapons that has taken the world by storm, I would say. It annihilated it in the first week or two in PKing before people realized how to use it properly, or how to defend against it properly, I should say. The Korasi sword is quite fantastic. I'm going to throw out the information real fast here. Level 78 attack. The Void stares back is necessary. 60% spec bar. 715 damage per attack max, which equates to 1,191 damage per spec bar, 2.4 seconds in between each hit, and 297 DPS. Now, the hard part about this weapon that you really have to get used to is that it deals between a guaranteed hit 100% always, between 50% and 150% of your total of your max damage. So you can hit higher than you normally can, and you're guaranteed to hit at least something, at least 50% of your damage. Now that is insane. You never get that with any other spec weapon. Now the disadvantage to this is that it's a mage attack, which is very easy to defend against. Just pray mage if you're PKing, or a lot of monsters have a high mage defense just in general, so you'll probably hit on the lower end of that, but it is a 100% guaranteed hit. The other disadvantage is that it's 60% spec bar, which means you can't hit back to back. You can only get one hit, and then you have to wait. Now what you can do is, if you use Ring of Vigor, that will lower the spec bar to 54%, and what you can do with that is you'll hit when you think it's about to regenerate the spec bar. So you hit once, and then it'll regenerate, and then you can hit again. So you have you in theory can hit 2 hits very quickly in KO. Or you can use energy transfer, which I believe is a lunar spell. You could have a friend give you enough spec bar to hit twice. Now that is super dangerous in the right circumstances. Now, because of the guaranteed hit, a lot of rushers use it. Now, you can anti-rush with this weapon as well if you have a Ring of Recoil and Korasi them back, that kind of thing. Anti-rushing is very, very effective with this weapon. The quest itself is very fast, and I would say the boss is quite difficult. I wouldn't recommend it unless you have a high enough combat level. If you guys want to see that, I'll have a boss hunter video up soon about that. Alright, so there you go, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the Korasi sword. Oh, one last thing. I would really recommend using this weapon for Slayer. This and the Vine Whip, I would say, are probably my 2 favorite for Slayer, because in Curadore's Dungeon you get a plus 40 damage, and anywhere else with the Slayer Helm and the other bonuses, this weapon is very, very effective. Now moving on to the Dragon Halberd, which is a very unexpected entry for a lot of people, I'm guessing. I'm going to jump into the stats real fast and talk about why I picked it and why it's in this guide. Level 60 attack, Regicide quest, which is pretty long and not that all that difficult, just a long quest. 30% Spec Bar, which is really unusual. 1,026 damage per attack, which adds up to 3,420 per 100% Spec Bar. 4.2 seconds per attack, which is pretty slow for any weapon, but you'll see why it's worth it in a second. And 244 DPS. Now, the DPS is really low because it attacks so slowly. But if you look at the total damage used, 1,026, that's pretty good for one attack. That's up there in, I think this might actually be number 1. Or no, I think it's behind the DDS. But that's about it. I mean, it's way up there. I would recommend using this weapon only for PVM, and PVM for boss monsters only. And, well, some Slayer tasks like the Fire Giants and stuff like that, it'll work too. Because if you're fighting a normal 1-squared human like PKing, it'll only deal 1 attack, which is 513 damage. If you want to do a boss, it'll do a swish attack, which will deal double damage for 1,026. That is why the DHally is in this guide, because for PVM, this is by far one of the best spec weapons. It gets a lot of flack from people because it has lowish attack, so it's harder to hit with. But if you have the stats, and if you want a cheap weapon, one-item weapon, let's say you're doing Chaos Elemental where you need a one-item weapon, not like a DDS where you use DDS and either DAFS or Dragon Defender. This is good for, if you want to save some inventory slots. It's also if you can't afford a God Wars item. That's basically why you would use this. I would use this over a Bando's God Sword, except for the Bando's has the defense bonus, which I'll talk about why the Bando's is not included in this guide towards the end. But anyways, there's the DHally. I hope you guys enjoyed. And now on to the last special weapon in this guide, the Abyssal Vine Whip, or Vine Whip, whatever you want to call it, Whip Vine, however you want to do it. Now, this one is also very unusual, and it's by far my favorite spec weapon ever. The stats for getting it are very difficult, and again, I'll discuss after the stats why I chose this weapon. Level 85 attack, which is the highest attack level thus far, and level 80 Slayer, so it's really difficult to get. It's very underrated because of the stats needed and the damage output. It's a 60% Spec Bar Usage. It deals 166 damage 10 times. Now, so it's over a long period of time, so you really can't go PKing with this weapon. But it's a lot of damage. Let's see, and that's 2,766. I don't know how I got the 66. 2,766. Yeah, that sounds right. Damage per Spec Bar. 2.4 seconds, and I have no idea what the DPS is. The DPS on this thing is like, I don't know, because it's dealt over a really long period of time. So I would say the DPS is like 12. I don't know if I had to guess. It'd take a very, very long time. This weapon is PVM only. Maybe dual arena. Maybe the dual arena would be useful, but usually the battles are over way before that. But because if you're doing a boss, they have such high HP that damage over time will make no difference whether you do it quickly or if you do it now. Now, the bonus to this weapon is that it's 60% Spec Bar and it's a shit ton of damage. So you spec and then you just continue attacking, or you switch to whatever. You can't switch. If you switch weapons, the spec attack will stop being activated. So you'll spec and then you continue attacking. So you get the spec damage and then you get a whole bunch of normal attacks. Now that's the advantage of this over, say, the DDS or the DHally, because the DDS takes 4 attacks to use up all its special. This, one time, bam, done, and then you continue attacking. No thought, no switching, nothing needed, just spec, deal a shit ton of damage, and continue attacking like nothing happened. This is why it's by far my favorite, and it looks the coolest, personally. I really do like the way the Vine Whip looks. So, now, to move on to the last couple weapons, I'll talk about this as you guys are watching the damage happen in the background. I didn't talk about the other God Wars, the other God Swords, the Bandos, Saradomin, or Zami, because I only wanted to cover in this guide the best weapons for either PKing or PVM. All spec weapons have their use, but they're not covered in this guide because they're not good for specifically PKing or PVM. Now, like the Saradomin God Sword has a healing and prayer renewal thing on it. Very useful if you're doing something like, say, Jad or other things. But that's something you have to research and look into on your own. If you guys have any questions, comment below, and I will be happy to answer, why I said what I said, or why I skipped a weapon, or if there's any information you want to know, let me know. I'll be happy to do calculations of DPS or whatever for you. And make sure you guys like, favorite, comment, subscribe below, and thanks for watching, guys. I really had fun making this guide. Peace out.